let's go. Okay, let's go. All right, so we are live. It is 6 p.m. UK time. Time for a live design critique. Couple of new things going on here today. So I'm trying out a new live kind of live session system, webinar platform, and it looks like that's working great. So we're currently streaming both to Facebook Live in the group and also via the webinar system, which I think I've posted a link to on the events page. So if anything goes down with Facebook, you can hop onto that link and join me on the private group there. And if anything goes down on the webinar thing, you can come back to Facebook. So we've kind of got a bit of built-in redundancy today, which is good because you never know when things are going to mess up over here. So today we're going to do some live design critique. This was kind of a quick deal idea from yesterday, and I just wanted to kind of ease my way back into doing some live stuff with you guys, and live design critique seemed like the best way to do it. Everyone always kind of wants help with their designs. That's one thing that pops up quite often that people ask for is, can you give me some help on the design side? So I thought I would dive in and do that today. So we have a list here of designs that people have sent in. So we've got about 26 designs that were sent in total, which is quite a lot. So I don't know if we'll get through all of them today, but I'll try my best to at least get through one from every person who submitted something. If you didn't submit something yesterday, then don't panic. We'll do something like this again very soon. So there'll be opportunities again to join in and get your designs critiqued should you wish. Let me just run through a couple of kind of ground rules and let you know what I'm going to be focusing on here today. So let me pull up my my notes here. So what I'm going to do is open up these various designs, and I'm going to give you my personal opinion, and that may be I'm not really going to sugarcoat stuff, so please don't take offense at anything I say, but this is my open and honest, unvarnished opinion about these designs. And really what I'm going to show you and tell you is this is what I would do if this was my idea. This is how I would render the design, and this is how I would improve the design if a designer sent this back to me or something like that. What I'm going to say may not make sense for your business. It may not even make sense for your strategy. It's more kind of my personal route and how I would do things. And I think that's kind of what people would most like to hear. I'm not really going to try and dive into too much, big picture stuff about your strategy, your types of designs, or even the niches or the audience or the market that you're going after. Instead, I'm just going to focus on this design, what it looks like, the aesthetics of it, how it could be improved, and how I would attack it if it was a design I was creating. So we've got a nice option of designs. We've got quite a big variety. So I think there'll be something for everyone to take away from this. So yeah, just take what I say with a pinch of salt. Hopefully no one's going to get offended by anything I say if I seem a bit harsh or something. It's just that I'm going to be as honest as I can be about these designs and how I would deal with them. So I'm going to talk primarily about design. So that's design elements, the colors, the layouts, the placements, the graphic style, the treatment, all that kind of stuff. Not so much about things like niches or markets or even keywords, even though that might crop up if I notice it. But I'm going to try and focus my attention on the design side. And also that will kind of roll over into like ideas and concepts, because on a couple of these, I've had a quick look at them already. The design is perhaps weak, but the idea and the concept behind it is not bad, and it could be developed and it could actually be turned into a good design, but it maybe needs a little bit of a push along the way. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We may not get through all the stuff today. I'm going to kind of rush through. We've got an hour I've given myself today for this session. And it will be first come, first served. So if you were the first to send a design through, I think it was Diane who got in there first, and then Steve and Nikolai and a few others. So you guys are going to come first, and then I'll work down the list. As far as comments and questions and stuff goes, what I'll try to do is keep an eye on the comments. I have got two live chat things going. We've got the one in the webinar room and the one on Facebook. So it might be a bit tricky for me to keep up, but I'll do my best. And maybe I'll leave a nice 10 minutes or something towards the end, where if you have any questions, we can go over some stuff then. But I will try and keep an eye on the live chat. Just maybe bear that in mind, that I won't be kind of watching it like a hawk as I try and do these design critiques. So, what time are we on? 5 minutes past. Who have we got here? So we got Brenda, we got Carol, we got Jim, we got Hamza is in the house. Sheila, JL is here, Kathleen, Marco, wonderful. Pat Smith is here. I think we got some of your designs here, Pat. Jacob Campbell, we got Brenda. Okay, awesome. So it looks like everything's good to go. I assume everyone can see and hear me okay still. Everything's fine. Give me a thumbs up or a smiley face or something if that's the case, and we'll get cracking here imminently. I'll just have a drink and we'll go. So where are we here? I'll just give you guys a couple of seconds. Okay, some thumbs up are coming in there. Wonderful. So first design up. Oh, I also have my Apple Pencil here ready so I can draw. Hopefully you can draw some pictures on here as well. Let's see if that works. Yeah, okay. So it's a little bit laggy, but it's not too bad. Okay, so we can do some drawing and some stuff as well. Wonderful. Marco says, tub up. Yeah, tub up to you too, Marco. Smiley faces from Kathleen and Gary, so it looks like we are good. All right, let's go and dive into it today. So first design up here is from Diane Kennedy. Diane. Thank you, Diane, for sending this one in. And here we go. This is a kind of 4th of July Independence Day design, I believe. Freedom Rocks with George Washington and Abraham Lincoln with bandanas. I guess those are bandanas or scarves around their heads. And yeah, doing the peace sign with apparently red and blue nail varnish on. So, my thoughts on this design. First, there's really quite a lot going on in this one, Diane. So, where to begin? So, a couple of thoughts right off the bat in terms of the design and how the design looks. I think it's obvious from this design that you've used different elements. So I don't know whether you've done the design or a designer, but it doesn't matter. We've got the illustration, which is kind of the background illustration, you could call it, of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. And then we've got over the top, we've got these sunglasses and these bandanas and these hands, and they've obviously been drawn separately and kind of superimposed and layered on the top. And I think this is really obvious, and I think it betrays a bit of amateurish artwork and amateurish design work, because it's obvious, especially if you look at the hands, these peace, can you see my hands? Peace sign hands. They look to me, I mean, the George Washington one in particular looks really out of perspective and out of scale. It looks way too big, and I think those are some of the initial issues that I think immediately hit me when I looked at it. I thought, okay, this has not been done by an artist who sat down and sketched out this idea and drawn it all in one sitting. It's been done in parts, and it's been done in layers, and it looks a little bit amateurish. Now, as far as the concept goes, I think that there's something good there. There's this Freedom Rocks thing, and I guess you could say that. I guess the idea is that Abraham Lincoln and George Washington look kind of like they're rocking out, or they're rockers or rock stars or something like that. Now, as far as like the peace sign or the victory sign thing goes, I'm not sure that really. I could maybe consider that a bit of a distraction from maybe the initial concept, and I think there's certainly something that could be done around the font and kind of the layout. So honestly, I think maybe what we should do with this one is I'll kind of sketch out maybe what I would do in this situation. So I think we've got. Let me just plug my iPad in here 1 second. I think we've got a decent concept as far as like Freedom Rocks and George Washington and Abraham Lincoln goes. Like that's a funny concept. The concept of these very not ancient but old presidents somehow rocking out or something, I think is a good concept. So I like the Freedom Rocks thing. Freedom Rocks. I think that, just that kind of phrase lends itself to a t-shirt joke, because we've got this whole thing of like freedom meaning, America and American presidents and that kind of thing. And then rocks, of course, means it's good. Freedom is good, but it also, you can have a play on words with that, as in rocks, as in rock and roll. And that's, I think, where there's an opportunity for a bit of a joke, something that lends itself to a t-shirt. So I think I would be tempted in a situation like this to probably do something that's more obviously about rock and roll, by which I mean, I would be tempted to do something like, let's say we got George Washington here. What does George Washington look like? So George Washington with his sunglasses and stuff, but I would be tempted to do something like George Washington with a guitar, and maybe Abraham Lincoln like here. Abraham Lincoln's got a big beard. Abraham Lincoln wears a big hat, and Abraham Lincoln could be, I don't know, he could be on the microphone or something, could have a little microphone going up here. And I think something like that. So what I would do is kind of get rid of, I would draw this, I would get an artist or myself, I would draw this, properly, and like spend some time on it and sketch it out. I like the style of the kind of old illustration style. You can see it's kind of like pencil sketch style, almost an etching style. So I'm pleased with that. I like that style. I would do that, but I think it, the actual layout and stuff here, I think it would be better if you had these guys facing one another rather than facing in the same direction. And I think you don't need necessarily all this, bandanas and stuff like that. I think it could work simply with, I don't know, George and Abraham with sunglasses and some guitars and some kind of rock paraphernalia. And then what I would do is I would go for something like this. I would take freedom and put that at the top, and I would put rocks underneath it. The reason for that is because we're making a kind of play on words, because the joke is freedom rocks, and rocks has a double meaning. It means it's good, but it also means rock and roll in this case, so that's where the joke is. If you put freedom rocks together and people read it in one line, it can be a bit like, you're not making the joke as obvious as you could be. Whereas if you leave a bit of a beat, a bit of space between freedom and rocks, you're almost emphasizing there's a joke here, and it's kind of like freedom ... rocks, and it almost makes this emphasis in the joke. And you'll see that a lot on different t-shirt designs where there's a kind of play on words. They'll break things up, and it will, the first line will be up at the top, and the bottom line, almost the punch line, will be at the bottom, and that just kind of emphasizes the joke. So that's why I think it would be better to do that. So I don't know if you can kind of visualize this with me. I think in order to make the leap to make it a kind of 4th of July design, which I think it would be anyway, people get the connection between old presidents and freedom and the 4th of July. It all works. You don't have to be explicit. It doesn't need to say 4th of July or Independence Day on it anywhere. But I would be tempted to add something like maybe some fireworks stuff in the background, or some kind of stars. And I think in terms of color scheme, I would go for kind of like you've done here. I'd go for the red, white, and blue as much as is possible. Or if it was a navy background shirt, I would probably go for white and red, and light blue over the top, if that makes sense. So I can see here on your design, you've actually got kind of black for George's coat and black for Abraham Lincoln, the detail of his face. If this was me and this was my design, because it's on a navy shirt, I wouldn't have black on a navy shirt. I would take the black out, I would punch the black out, and I would just use the navy background of the shirt to do the work of any black stuff. And in that case, you would just use an outline. If you needed to show some definition, you could use a white outline to show the outline of George's coat or something like that if you needed to. So this is the more of the direction I would go with it. I think, in many ways, there's a lot of stuff that's good. The illustration style of Abraham and George, the overall joke of Freedom Rocks is strong. I just think it could be more focused around the rock and roll kind of thing, and it could be more. The layout could be more t-shirty. If you imagine this now on a t-shirt, I don't know if I can't really zoom out here, but if you imagine the t-shirt, here, this would work nicer, I think, as a t-shirt design. Lose some of the colors, lose the black, and keep it this kind of focused, almost circular design. You kind of got almost a circular shape, rather than this design, which is a little bit visually, aesthetically out of balance in my view. So that's what I would do with that one, Diane. I hope that has been helpful for you. We've got a lot to get through, so I am going to go at kind of breakneck speed here. So let's clear that one off and do a new one here for our next design, which comes from Steve Axworthy. Sorry, Steve. Steve Axworthy sent this one in, which is Coffee Makes the World Go Round. Now, I like the reason I picked this one is it's quite an obvious, simple design to understand. So we can get it, straight off the bat. Coffee makes the world go round. The reason I picked it as well is I thought there was an obvious issue here, because it wasn't immediately clear to me that this circle in the middle, the globe, was a coffee cup. And I don't know whether that's immediately obvious to you guys watching this either, but to me it wasn't immediately obvious. I had to kind of take a second look and go, oh, it's supposed to be a coffee mug, and that's supposed to be the world inside the coffee mug. So in terms of design wise, what I thought you could do to fix that and to make that more obvious is something like this. And you might have guessed where I'm going, but I think if you made the mug, something like this, and then in here was where you had the globe element, something like that. I think this would make a more obvious design. I think it's difficult to see when you have it like that, that this is supposed to be like a latte or whatever it is. I don't drink coffee, so I don't know what kind of coffee that might be. But I think it would be nicer if you kind of did a simple line sketch, something like this, with the globe in there. And then you could obviously have the same. I think the text, the layout of the text is fine. How did you do it? Coffee makes the... Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I don't know whether coffee makes the world go round. I would be tempted perhaps to do... to just go like this. Coffee at the top, and then like makes the world go round at the bottom. And then if you wanted to, kind of link it up, I would do... Oops, why is that not working? There we go. Oh, my pencil's not working. Like a coffee bean there, and a coffee bean there. Something like that, I think, would be a nice, a more succinct kind of obvious way to show it. So I hope that makes sense. Come on, Apple Pencil. Okay, my Apple Pencil's doing okay again. So yeah, hope that helps you, Steve. I think it's concept-wise, it's it's a nice idea to have the world inside a coffee cup. I'm not going to comment on kind of is that a good fit for the market or anything. I don't know. I'll leave that one up to you. But in terms of design, I think it could be improved as a layout, and to make it clearer to draw it inside a coffee cup like that. So I'll leave that one there. Whoops, don't want to really lose my sketchpad like that. Oh no, have I lost everything? No. Oh, it's saved. Okay, good. Okay. Has it saved? Come on, baby. Yeah, there we go. All right. No. Yes, it's working. Okay. Next up, we have one from Nikolai on Etsy, and this one is Freedom is Cool. Freedom is Cool, and Freedom is Cool shirt ice cream gift statue. So, a kind of similar situation to the previous design here, in that there's a nice phrase here. Freedom is cool. I think it works as a, it has a double meaning. Freedom is cool, meaning freedom is good, and then freedom is cool, and then it's like an ice cream. Now the problem here with this design is I don't think that our ice cream graphic is actually obviously an ice cream. So have you guys still got me okay on the live there? I've got like a video that's not updated here, but can you guys still see and hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up or whatever, or thumbs down if not. I'll just keep going for a second here unless I hear otherwise. But yeah, so freedom is cool. I don't think that this graphic, this Lady Liberty's torch is obviously an ice cream. So what I would say is we want to make that more obvious, and there's a couple of ways we could do that. I think one way would be to, let me have a quick look at this hand again. So we got the hand like this. Obviously terrible sketch there, but instead of it being this obvious torch shape, what you could do is make it more obviously an ice cream cone, and a more obvious kind of ice cream shape, maybe even with a flake in it at the top. That would be an obvious ice cream to us here in the UK. I don't know, my question there would be whether that would be obvious that it was a reference to the Statue of Liberty. So if you didn't think that was a good idea, then I would be tempted to go for, I'm going to need a reference image here, Statue of Liberty. I would be tempted to kind of zoom out a bit and take a better reference of the Statue of Liberty, so something like this, and we could go for come on, pencil, don't let me down now. Trying to use an Apple Pencil like you would a pen that's run out of ink. Come on, I might need to charge my pencil here for a few minutes while we're doing this, but hopefully you kind of get the idea here. The idea is that you would draw kind of the head and shoulders of the Statue of Liberty and then make this an ice cream at the top, and that would be a more obvious ice cream. And then we could go for, I know it's kind of my default option, but this is what I do a lot of the time. It's just freedom is cool. And I don't know, to kind of top this off, we could have Lady Liberty could be wearing sunglasses, something like that. And in terms of like style, I would go for a kind of realistic approach to the illustration. So, a kind of realistic sketch style, traditional illustration style approach. But you could also go for a more cartoony style or something like that. I think both would work. So yeah, I think it's a nice, to be honest, the illustration style you've got is very nice. I like it. It's kind of low res. You got a nice kind of treatment on there. I don't know if people can see there's kind of a weathered effect on the illustration. And colors wise, it's nice limited color palette, so I like that as well. But my problem with it is I'm not sure it's obvious that the torch is supposed to be an ice cream, and I think there's ways to make it more obvious that it is. So yeah. Hope that makes sense. Props on that one. I think it's a good concept and a good design. I think it could just be more obvious, and there's different ways of approaching the same concept as I've illustrated here. So I hope that one helps you, Nikolai. Who've we got next up? Pat Smith has one here. Pat Smith has, I'll just do a new sketch here. This one which says city bred, farm fed. So, Pat, what I think about this one is I like the text. I think that as a design, it's quite aesthetically pleasing. It looks nice. If it was my design, if it was a design I was creating, I would never use this many colors. It looks to me like you've taken some artwork or some vector art or something, and you've used those elements in the design. Um, Personally, I don't do that. I hand draw all my own work, or I commission an artist to draw stuff. You may have commissioned an artist to draw this, but the variety of colors and textures and gradients and stuff going on in the artwork is for me something I stay away from personally. I'm not saying that that applies to everyone, of course, take this with a pinch of salt, but I like to have graphics that are 2 or 3 colors, um, maybe 3, 4, 5 colors at the absolute maximum. And I can see here you've got all kinds of different kind of gradients and stuff going on. Now, visually it does look nice. I just think that when it comes to being printed, I don't think it's going to have the vibrancy of these colors. And I think the kind of market you're going for, the kind of, I guess you're going after kind of city dwellers who like to buy from farm markets and grow their own food and stuff like that. I think it would work just as well if it was like a 1 color or a 2 color graphic and the illustrations were just kind of line art of vegetables or something like that. So that's my first thought on that. I just personally get scared away from any graphic that uses too many colors and stuff, because I just think it's never going to print too great, and it's just kind of overcomplicated, and it could be simpler and still do a great job. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. In terms of the design concept, one thing I did wonder about was whether you could have pushed it a little bit further, because I kind of get there's a thing here of city bred, farm fed. So we've got the kind of meeting of these two things. You've got city dweller, or someone who lives in the city or works in the city or whatever, and they want to indicate that they grow their own food or they buy from local farm shops or something like that. That being the case, you've represented very well the graphics of the farm side, but there's not much that kind of shows the city side. There's nothing really that shows the city side. And I wonder if you could have done something to kind of show that a bit more. So, for example, I wonder whether you could do some kind of cityscape based on vegetables or something. I don't really know how this would look, but I'm just going to kind of draw something off the top of my head. I don't know what that vegetable is. What other vegetables have you got here? So that could be some leaves. So for example, it could be kind of like a fake cityscape as opposed to a real cityscape made of vegetables. But you could have your vegetables there kind of making up the different elements of the city line somehow, the city skyline somehow, or something like that. I think I admit it's a concept that needs a bit of work to actually kind of flesh it out, but I think there's a possibility there to do something that kind of meshes these two ideas of city and vegetables together and create something that could look nice. And then we could go for something like city bred, farm fed underneath. I mean, this is just a very quick idea. I don't know if there's another way you could take it. I don't know, skyscraper made out of vegetables or something like that. But I just think there's perhaps somehow you could get the city element in there as well to make it perhaps a stronger, more standout concept than just being a collection of vegetables. Nice as it is, because aesthetically this design is nice. It looks professional. I could imagine going into a store and seeing it on a shelf somewhere. But when you're up against various other designs on a Amazon search results page, you really want something that's going to stand out and really break the mold. And I think you could perhaps push it a bit further. So hopefully that helps you, Pat. Let's move on to our next one. This is Mac with design on Redbubble. Okay, Mac. I will say, Mac, your designs gave me the most trouble in terms of trying to understand it. So, Mac, you sent through 3 designs. Most people did send through 3 designs as I requested, which was very nice. Mac, all of the designs you sent through, I didn't get them at all when I looked at them. So that is to say that I didn't understand the market, I didn't understand the meaning of the designs, I didn't understand if there was a joke going on or whatever. And this design probably encapsulates that very well. It says, after SpaceX, Tesla perturbs asteroid 52665 orbit, PHO to AHO, support NEO projects. Now, you've done me the favor of explaining basically what the design is about, and from what I gather in this long description, it's something to do with asteroids and protection of Earth from asteroids and that kind of thing. Listen, I don't know enough about the market or the space to really comment about anything like that. I will say, as a design for a t-shirt, I think it needs a lot of work, and I think what I would do here is I would focus on the one thing that does look to me like it was something that could appear on a t-shirt, and that would be this line at the bottom which says support NEO projects. Now, I'm probably getting all the technical stuff wrong, but let's assume, or bear with me and assume that there is a group of people who advocate for the searching of asteroids and are worried about an asteroid striking Earth, and therefore support NEO projects is one of those such organizations or something. So it means protect Earth from an asteroid, support NEO projects. So if that's the case, I would draw back from this complicated design. I think I would start afresh, and I think you're trying to illustrate, almost a concept or a joke, and that doesn't translate very well to a t-shirt in this case. And I think you would be better off looking at something like, in my little book of t-shirt ideas, something like the X-Gang framework, where we try and take a topic or a subject, and we somehow create a design that labels the wearer as a member of a particular gang. So often these designs look something like, they use, maybe like a circular badge or something that shows membership of a group, or like a group logo, or a team logo or something like that. So I'd be tempted to go down that kind of route, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, if it's NEO that we're going for, I mean, we could go for something that says, I don't know, my Apple Pencil won't work. Would go for something like, maybe I could type it out instead. Oh, here we go. NEO project supporter or something like that. And no, come on. Supporter. And do some kind of graphic. I mean, this is not going to make a lot of sense because it's, it's really simple. But I think there's just not a lot here to go off, and I think you should really boil it back down to who's the audience you're going after, who you're trying to target, and what would they respond to. And if they're a supporter of asteroid protection measures or something, then I think you could do some kind of, logo or some kind of, I support, I don't know, asteroid protection measures or something like that, because I think this design just looks more like a comic or something that might appear in a newspaper. It doesn't look like a t-shirt design, and I don't think it should take that long for me to understand a design. It took me way too long to get what this was about, and I think that's where unfortunately it needs to go back to the drawing board or something. Now I take that with a pinch of salt, because maybe everyone knows what NEO projects are and stuff, and it could be a great seller. So obviously take everything I say with a pinch, but I think that something like this needs a bit more work to make it work on a t-shirt. So I hope that helps you, Mac. Roy Frieda, who sent an email with some design ideas, and also said in his email that Essek means business in Hebrew, which I did not know, which is very interesting. Thank you for telling me that, Roy. Essek means business. It could almost be my tagline, couldn't it? Michael Essek. Essek means business. If I ever move to Israel or something. So this was Roy's design. Another day, another dung. So the reason I picked this one as my first one to go at from Roy's is I like I really like the concepts. I don't know if it's an original concept or if it's been done before or whatever, but I'm going to assume in this case that this is an original kind of line. Another day, another dung. So I like it. I like the concept. I just think the artwork could use some work. So what you've got going on that's good here, Roy, is I think having the graphic on an angle. I think that works because, of course, like a dung beetle pushing dung up a hill, that makes sense, and that's kind of familiar to people as a thing about dung beetles. So I like that. I think the graphic and stuff is kind of a cartoony looking beetle. I wonder if it would have a more generic appeal if your dung beetle actually looked realistic, like a real dung beetle, whatever they look like. Yeah, like these guys. So I think if this was my concept, if I'd come up with the phrase "another day, another dung," I think I would be tempted to do something like, have a slight incline with my dung, and then my beetle pushing it up. But I would have my beetle be a realistic style beetle. So basically, same layout in many ways as yours, but I would go for like a realistic style on here and here, kind of old school sketch illustration, maybe in white on a dark background or something. And I would, yes, you've guessed it, probably go for my text split up across the top and the bottom. So another day, another dung. That's one way of approaching it. A possible other approach would be I think that you could do the dung beetle. I'm trying to think here, because when I think about the joke "another day, another dung," the joke is kind of same, different day, same old crap, right? That kind of joke of the 9 to 5, the daily grind, doing the same thing over and over again. And for dung beetles, they're actually literally pushing crap up a hill or whatever. And so the joke is that, everybody hates their job and that kind of stuff. So I wonder whether, in order to kind of emphasize that element of the joke, we could go for something like a dung beetle kind of looking kind of tired and beat up, and maybe having his like morning coffee as he sits, maybe like kind of just having a little rest as he sits on his pile of dung, just kind of waiting for the day to start or something, or getting ready for the day to start. And then we could have the text again kind of over and underneath, or you could go for it like along the side here, something like that. So I think there's other ways of approaching the same idea, but I like it as a concept. I think it works. I think it has a good connection with the idea, and I think there's a market for I hate my job stuff and that kind of thing, especially around Christmas. I think the idea of people buying like novelty mugs and novelty T-shirts and gifts for people, especially people buy gifts for people in the office and they have Secret Santas and stuff, and things that are like I hate my job, just kill me, not another day, all bumper sticker stuff, or little funny notes that people stick in their cubicles about how crap everything is and just kill me, all those kind of jokes. I think this could work in that way, and people would look at it and go that makes sense. I think Robert just said the audio and video dropped out. Is anyone else having issues, or are we still good here? Let me know if you guys are struggling. If you're not, Are we okay? Oh, sorry, I'm just scrolling through the chat and oh, video is good on my end, says Jonathan. Ree says I'm good. Okay, it looks like we're okay over there. John Duckworth says okay. Okay, I'll keep on going. It's just you don't want to keep on going if your video is frozen. Okay, I hope that one helps you, Roy. Again, like the idea, like the joke. Think there's some leverage in it there. Close my sketchpad again. Next one was Musa Al-Mashni with Pug Donald's. I think. Sorry, how do I say your name again? Musa. Pug Donald's. The reason I picked this design was just that I liked the pug's expression on his face. I just thought it was really quite funny. I think there's some issues with this design. Not with for example, to begin with, is it too close to the line of McDonald's, and is it potentially kind of infringing on that? It could be, it could not be. It certainly would be safe for like Redbubble. I'd have no hesitation putting that on Redbubble or whatever. But on Amazon, could get you in trouble. I would probably not risk it on Amazon. But you know what I like about this design is it's up my street, because I don't think it makes any real sense in that there's no obvious joke here apart from it's a pug that looks like Ronald McDonald, which is just really random and stupid, and which is kind of up my street in terms of funny designs. Now, I have to warn you that just because something is up my street, that doesn't mean people are going to buy it, and often the opposite is true. The more I find something funny, the less it tends to make sales out in the real world. But having said all that, let's kind of break it down and critique it a little bit. I think we've got a similar issue here with graphics. We've got a hamburger which is drawn in a very different way to the pug, and I think that's distracting and looks amateurish. So I think if you could redraw the hamburger to kind of match the pug, or I mean the way the pug is drawn is kind of very basic vector lines. It looks like it's been done by a bit of an amateur vector artist. But in a weird way, I like that. But it doesn't look professional. So, for example, you know, I could see this kind of design maybe selling in some kind of niche internet-y pop culture community, or maybe on a T-Fury or on some kind of Reddit subreddit or something like that. But I wouldn't, you know, this wouldn't go in my portfolio to go to a licensing show or something like that. I would feel that this is a bit amateurish looking. I think I just like the idea of a clown pug, and you know that kind of works. I don't think Pug Donald's as a joke is that good. I think, you know, it's pretty weak, but like I said, I personally like it, and that's why I picked it. And if it makes you laugh, there must be something going on there. So again, I even looked like to try and see if you targeted this to any particular thing, and it seems like it is just generally aimed at pug lovers or burger lovers or whatever. So yeah, I think at the very least, in order to improve this design, I would want to see a redrawing of the artwork. Things like the hair that's going on here. So you see this hair kind of, I don't know whether you guys can see, but it has kind of a gradient going on the hair. It doesn't have a clear outline. I would be tempted to, you know, if I was feeling particularly crazy, to draw something like kind of a big close-up head of the dog. I'm going to do this no justice at all, but if you imagine, you know, kind of the mountain designs where it's, you know, a big animal's head. So okay, I don't even know what a pug looks like. So, you know, kind of the pug's face like this, just kind of. I just think the idea of a clown pug is pretty good, but I think you should draw it in a realistic-y kind of way. You could go with the Pug Donald's joke. I think it would work even without the Pug Donald's element. So yeah, I think there's something there in terms of like style. When I say like realistic illustration style, a good brand who do this quite well is Headline Shirts. If I just pull up an example, just to show you what I mean in terms of this kind of illustration. So, in fact, these are pretty good. They've got a dog shirt going on right now. And you can see, I don't know how well you'll be able to see the actual quality level of the artwork, but it's a realistic sketch. You know, it's not a cartoony sketch. It's not a vector sketch as such, although it could be. But it's a realistic kind of sketch of a dog. And that's the kind of thing I'm kind of meaning. Like, it would just be, I would even go for, you know, not a coloured sketch, but, you know, a kind of, so this kind of thing. So they did like the Galileo design there. This one of a sloth. So that's the kind of thing I mean. If you could do something like this, but it's a, let's see if I can find a close-up here or something. You know, it's kind of a realistic looking sketch of a pug that looks like a clown. I don't know. I think that could be good. That's kind of where I'd take something like that. I'm not saying it would work or it would sell, but that's kind of my leaning on that. Okay, I'm going to try and rocket through a few more before we try and get to like questions and answers and stuff. Mantis submitted this one here. Boeing 420. Now, you submitted a couple of other ones, Mantis. I'll just pull them up just to quickly reference them. I think you posted these as comments rather than a link to a shirt. You said this one was about Chernobyl, and then this one was something to do with a football team, I think. Now, I don't know anything about this. I know there's a Chernobyl TV show on at the moment, but I don't know anything really about it. I don't know what the text means here, and I don't know whether, you know, what this design is really referencing or anything. So I'm going to leave that one alone. This one as a basketball design for Lithuania basketball design. I mean, visually, I don't know anything about Lithuania, whether the skull and the mustache has some kind of Lithuanian reference. If it does, then fine, that's good. Visually, I think this is not bad. You know, the aesthetics of it are good. You know, the colors and the line work and stuff, it works. I could see it on a shirt. Could it be improved? I think again, there's maybe a few too many colors going on, and I think you need to maybe think about what the background of the shirt would be. And I would be tempted to lose the skull color and maybe just go with like a black outline on a lighter shirt, or vice versa, do a lighter design on a dark shirt. But I think the visuals there are nice. This one was the one that was kind of a joke, I guess. Well, it is a joke, of course. Boeing 420, or like Bong 420, I guess, is kind of the joke there. I think it's. I mean, I don't know whether this was a T-shirt design, because obviously it's on this kind of coloured background. I guess it was some kind of joke or meme you'd created. I just thought maybe there's something there that could be extended, but I think it's difficult to see. And in terms of, if you're asking me, is this a good T-shirt graphic, I would say no, because there's an awful lot going on. There's different kind of visual styles and stuff. The line work is very hodgepodge. So some lines are very thick, some lines are very thin. We've got some kind of speckled green brushes going on here, and kind of speckled brown. That doesn't work with the straight vector line work of the plane for me. And then you've got kind of a halftone effect going in the smoke, which again is like another different style which doesn't fit. So I would say you've got to pick which style you're going for. Are you going for a kind of a halftone pop arty look, a vector look, or a more kind of realistic or textured look with the bong or the spliff or whatever it's supposed to be? So I would say, you know, concept-wise, it's going to be difficult if you're making a joke about Boeing and the name Boeing and stuff like that. Also, could be a difficult one for Amazon, because it could be a reference to human tragedy and to airplane crashes and stuff. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying it could be perceived that way, and that could get you in trouble. But I kind of see, I think, where you're going, but I just think it needs clarification and work. So I hope that helps you, Mantis. Okay, now I think that we've now covered a design from everyone. So I'll just quickly maybe try and take 2 or 3 more from the people who got in quick, and see if I can give you a couple more ones. Okay, Diane, this is one of yours, I think. Patriotic Chicks. So again, another kind of 4th of July one. The reason I picked this one out is I think you missed perhaps an open goal here, which is that you've got a good concept, patriotic chicks, obviously the joke being chicks meaning women versus chicks meaning chickens. And I think rather than patriotic chicks, what I would have gone for was patriotic chick and have it as a label for the person wearing it. And by that I mean that rather than it being a joke about, well, it's still basically it's the same joke, but rather than it being like an image that's a joke, it would be like now you're labeling the person wearing it. So I had a quick look at your description and can see that you were kind of targeting this at military wives or military women in the military, that kind of thing, and maybe on a girls' night out for military girls. So I get that, but I still think that if I was a military wife or someone or a woman in the military, then I would place side by side patriotic chicks with a picture of chicks versus patriotic chick, and it being I'm labeling myself as a patriotic chick, and there's a joke here about a chicken, but it labels me, the wearer, as a patriotic girl, if you like. I think that is a stronger concept. So I would be tempted to go for something kind of like we said maybe with the pug. Rather than having a group of chicks, I would maybe just go for like one chick. How on earth do you draw a chick? Something like this. I keep the sunglasses, that's fine. Now the berets, I have to say, when I first looked at it, that didn't seem like a good fit for me, but maybe I'm a bit green and I don't know that women in the military wear berets, whatever. So if they do, then fine. Again, I think we've got a bit of a difficulty with like mixed matched artwork here. Like the berets look like they've been plopped on top of the chicks. They don't look like they've been drawn together, and the same with the little American flags on there. So I would want to kind of redraw the whole thing. If they are wearing berets, then I'd want to, draw them again, draw them all in one kind of thing, and I would have, a little chick like this. Could be realistic, could be cartoony, kind of up to you. And I would go for something like patriotic chick. Don't know whether you'd go for CHIC or CHICK. Probably K, I guess. But I think that would make, if you even made it, I don't know, more of a badge than a straight graphic, I think that could be really a strong idea, and could work well. So I just think that would make it a better T-shirt that perhaps is more likely to sell. I get the idea of maybe doing a design that people would buy in group and take out, but I still think something like this might work better. And you could even go down the idea of something like, I don't know, patriotic chick gang or something like that. Just to make it more of a label that labels the wearer instead of it being, like a single joke graphic, if that makes sense. I'll just do one more, I think, and then I'll open it up if there's any questions. This was another one from Steve. So I need a hug at first glance, but it actually says I need a huge mug of beer, and I think this is a decent design. Things I like about it are the fonts, the kind of 70s kind of Austin Powersy kind of font. I think works well. I think you've done a decent job of a graphic that represents hug, but also has the mug element in. I think, to be honest, if this was my idea, I'd be tempted to do something that was more text based than graphic. I might even be tempted to kind of lose the graphic entirely and just do something like, I mean, you see these kind of designs around. Or maybe you would go with, I need a hug mug of beer. I don't know whether you need the graphic in the middle and whether that could be a little bit distracting. So that's kind of my initial thought. Again, you could take the graphic out and just move your text up or something. One final thought on this is the exclamation mark at the end. I don't think it's necessary. I think with a lot of kind of t-shirt jokes and stuff, an exclamation mark can kind of be a bit too forceful, and it's almost kind of like forcing the joke. And if you kind of take it away, it's a bit more dry, sarcastic, and it reads a bit more that way without it. So I think that could be the way to go with something like that. Alternatively, I mean, if you, I'm trying to think of how else you could do it. I mean, I think your graphic is not bad. You know, trying to get a graphic that represents hug and beer together is a nice idea. I don't know, if I was drawing it with some kind of cartoony character in mind or something, you could do something like a big kind of beer glass and like some, I don't know, cute character like hugging it or something like that. That kind of looks like a sloth, but I don't know. I think those are kind of the different ways you could take the same concept. And then in that case, you could go for something like, you know, I could see this on like a Threadless or something. Like, you know, you have like a big mug, and then you got like a kind of cute character here who's like looking at it, smiling, and he's like hugging the thing. And then something like that. So again, just another kind of option if you were that way inclined with your drawing or something, to take the same concept but create something that says the same thing but in a different way, or even for a different market or something. And of course, that could work in a number of different ways. You know, I need a huge glass of wine. I need a huge glass of vodka. I need a huge pizza or whatever. Or with the hug thing joke on the end. So certainly something that could work there, Steve. So props for that. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. So thank you guys for submitting your designs and for joining me. Are there any questions we could maybe take for the next couple of minutes before we wrap it up? Steve says, thank you. I do have text-only versions of this. Good work, Steve. Gary says, move out the way, emojis. Gary says, write the text inside a silhouette of a beer mug. That's a nice one. So you could have a, you know, maybe a beer mug, big beer mug like this, and I need a huge glass of beer. So yeah, something like that. That's a good idea there from Gary as well. Try it with a pug. Yep, good idea. And Steve says, thanks so much. Okay, great. Okay, so Zillist, which do you think converts better, round design layouts or stack designs, Michael? I don't think there's really this converts better. I just think there's kind of personal preference. My personal preference tends to be for designs that are circular in nature, whether that's something like that, or one thing I do quite a lot of is like text kind of curving at the top and then the punchline text in a straight line at the bottom. So kind of that kind of layout with the graphic, some kind of graphic in the middle, or this one, you know, text curved on both ends. Obviously, another one that people do a lot is kind of like, you know, kind of straight up text with a graphic in the middle, or graphic at the top with the text kind of just beneath it. I think one that doesn't work so well is text at the top with a graphic beneath. If it's straight, I think it's always better to try and, I think this does not look as good as this in most cases, layout wise. And of course, you could do stuff like you can have your text on kind of a slant or a curve with your graphic, and then, I don't know, text beneath. Or sometimes you could have your text, like a line here, a line there, a line there, and some kind of graphic on this side, like a beer mug or whatever. So it really depends on the joke and on the concept and how it works. These are definitely my kind of go-to approaches. This doesn't need to be a circle, by the way. That's kind of more of a circle approach. But you could do the same thing with like an elongated oval where your text comes up a long ways and comes down a long ways, and your graphic is really tall for some reason. Maybe it's a giraffe or something. So yeah, I don't think there's really a case of converts better. I just think there's a case of visually more pleasing and what works best for you and what the design calls for. Sometimes a design might call for this, but in most cases I prefer to go for these kind of layouts, and unless there's a strong reason not to. John says, is there a replay? Yes, John, there should be a replay as soon as this is over. Manta says thanks. Robert says thanks. Pat says thanks so much, Michael. No problem. Thank you, Pat. Carol says very helpful. Great. Zilis says he likes circular as well. Debbie says she sees a lot of circular. Kathleen says, one question about the style. Do you think that the more realistic things sell better? I mostly draw in a very cute and cartoony style, very simplified. I think, Kathleen, that it depends on the market and the concept and the joke, of course. Some things, like if you're drawing Abraham Lincoln or George Washington, they lend themselves to a more realistic, old school, sketchy style. But if you're doing, some kind of joke that's a funny phrase or something, then those work well with cartoons and sketches and that kind of thing. So I think, it's really, really up to you. I think it depends. I think a lot of people struggle to do a more realistic sketch and would feel more comfortable doing a cartoony style stuff. Without seeing your style, I probably have seen your style in the past, Kathleen, but I just can't kind of picture it off the top of my head. It's just that when someone says cartoony, I immediately think of Fiverr gigs and people doing really crappy vector graphics and stuff, amateur style stuff. I know that's not you, but I think when you say cartoony, you better be able to draw something that looks nice on a t-shirt and that isn't, some vector stuff with gradients and poor line work and stuff. And I'll try and find some good examples to show you, but I probably can't do it in this session. But certainly there's no hard and fast rule on it. It must always be realistic. It can never be cartoony, or if it's cartoony, it always needs to be this way. Everyone has their own different style, and it's just a case of finding the style that works well for you, but also fitting that to make sure that it kind of works as a t-shirt design, not just, oh, this looks nice on my screen. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will work when it goes over onto, a t-shirt. So just bear that in mind. And things to bear in mind there are when you're doing a cartoony design, I always like to make sure we've got stuff like very clean line work. The lines are clear if it's a cartoon. Even do a vector graphic where there is no outline of the character, but you've just got very, very solid color shapes, and you can, everything's very bold and clear. I always tend to think in terms of screen printing and layers, you've got 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer, 4 layers, different colors, and you're going to layer those elements, and they're all going to be solid shapes on a screen. And that's how I think, and it helps me create a design that looks better in that case. Manta says, how long should a t-shirt design take? I think you mean take as in how long should it take to create. No answer to that one, Mantis. I mean, sometimes designs take 10 minutes, sometimes they take 10 days to work on and come back to and tweak. So it really depends. Obviously, if you're trying to make sales through organic print on demand, you really need to have a lot of designs. And in that case, you can be very drawn to an approach which is volume above everything else. Just get as many designs out as you can. Try and do designs that will only take 10 minutes and put them up. But I think long term, the better the better way to build a long-term business is to spend a bit more time on your designs. I think if you're more selective on your design ideas, you end up being more effective in the long term, even if that that doesn't work off the bat, or it seems counterintuitive at first. Yeah, Kathleen, animals and food, those definitely work a lot of times for more kind of cartoony stuff that works well for those kind of things. I think this was, I'm just coming to this link because Addy posted it and said, is this an obvious enough joke? I think it kind of is. Maybe? I don't know. No, I don't think it is obvious enough, to be honest, Addy. I guess it's supposed to be a swallow, but if it is a swallow, why would it be saying no swallowing? Do you know what I mean? Like, if that was the joke, you might be better off doing something like a, like a Ghostbusters thing with a swallow. No swallowing, something like that. Okay, Kathleen said that, and then Pat said, this is really helpful, no problem. Kathleen said, I'll send you some designs for the next critique session. Yes, please do, Kathleen. Yes, Debbie, this will be recorded. Okay, great. I think... Oh, Diane says, where are these questions coming from? So we're actually streaming in two places right now. We've got the Facebook Live. We've also got the private kind of webinar space. I will... it looks like everyone's enjoyed this. So what I'll try and do is schedule another one of these for next week. I will post a post in the Facebook group. I'll send an email out as well. And it will be the same concept. So first come, first served. You get your design in first, and that you will be on the top of the list to get it reviewed next time we do this. So yeah, I really don't have anything really to plug or push. I mean, if you guys haven't picked up your little book of t-shirt ideas yet, you'll want to go and grab that. I think we've got about 30 copies left in the office right now, and those have been very well received. You can go to littleideasbook.com if you want to pick one up. But apart from that, if you want to get your designs kind of ready for the next time we do this, and I'll send out information again. But thank you all for joining me. Hope this was helpful. Hope you got something out of it. And I hope you given you some kind of angles and thoughts to maybe filter your ideas through and come up with some better and more complete ideas for next time. I'll leave it there for today, so have a great rest of your Tuesday, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. We'll try and do this more regularly in the coming weeks. I've got about 5 weeks before I go off on our summer holidays of family, so we'll do some more stuff before then. So get your designs ready for next time, and I'll see you guys then. All right, thank you, everybody. Take it easy. Goodbye.